Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the COASTER-net Top 3. We've got 3 news stories that you might have missed this week. Starting off with a huge one, Canada's Wonderland did indeed open to the public this weekend, and a number of people got a pretty good look inside of that tunnel that was being built in the middle of the lake under Vortex. And there is clearly now dive coaster track, or at least heavy gauge B&M track inside that tunnel. They've tarped it over, but there were a few good shots on the internet this weekend of when a good wind kicked up. There's clearly what I would consider dive coaster track. That there's, unless it's a new style B&M coaster that we don't know about. The heavy rumor has been dive coaster for Canada's Wonderland in 2019. And this seems to somewhat confirm that. Waterparker, what are some of your thoughts here on Canada's Wonderland probably getting a dive coaster next year?
Well, I can't really think of any other park that would be best suited for a new dive coaster. You know, we have Leviathan, we have Behemoth. You know, we've had Canada's, Wonder Mountain's Guardian. That went a few years ago. However, Andy, they haven't really been getting a lot of big coasters lately. It's been mostly small flats. So, you know, last year when we started hearing rumors that, yeah, we're possibly going to be getting some dive coaster coming in, then we saw, hey, the water's being drained. And now we see the tunnel coming in. Andy, I think this is just the chalk on the wall. This is a dive coaster. Now, the thing about it, though, is whether or not if it's going to be, you know, a record breaker like what we saw with Cedar Point, or whether or not it's going to be not. Because in all honesty, Andy, I think that Canada's Wonderland, they've been waiting several years to get a brand new, large, thrilling coaster for their lineup. So I think most definitely they deserve something big.
Well, you know, a few things just off the top of my head. One, I feel like Canada's Wonderland, and I've only been there once for one weekend, but I've talked to other people who go there regularly, and I feel like Canada's Wonderland, you can kind of see it in the way Behemoth sometimes has a huge line, but Leviathan does not. Leviathan, you know, a lot of days doesn't have any line whatsoever. I remember when I was there, it was like a half a queue wait on a Saturday. So I think Canada's Wonderland has generated a different type of crowd than you would see at like a Cedar Point or a Kings Island. So maybe breaking records isn't what Canada's Wonderland needs to do, but we already see here them just having a tunnel on this is very different than what they did with Valravn. Valravn was completely above ground, not a whole lot of theming going on outside of like the gift shop, you know, no theming on the ride itself. Very different from what we saw with SheiKra, that has a number of tunnels and a lot of theming across the whole ride. Griffin kind of had not a whole lot, has the splashdown like SheiKra. We saw that, but here already we see a tunnel being built, and I think that's going to immediately get people excited at Canada's Wonderland, is this idea that you're going to be diving into this lake. You know, there's always been the rumor of continuing the biblical creatures with Behemoth, Leviathan. Ziz would be the next one. From the Bible that a lot of people have talked about in the past. I don't know if that's the route they'll go. I kind of suspect that they won't go that route. I think they're going to try something completely new. But I would assume it's going to be some sort of water element because it's going to drop into the middle of this lake. Some people were also worried that Vortex was going to be pulled out. But it does look like, if you look at the pictures, that they've put new supports on Vortex to accommodate this new tunnel. So, of course, you would not invest that sort of money into Vortex if you're just going to tear it out. So that's a good thing, because I think Vortex is one of the better aero suspended coasters, you know, across the world as well. So I'm kind of excited about this. I'm interested to see what the stats are. I don't think, though, this needs to be a record breaker for it to be a big hit at Canada's Wonderland.
Well, and you know, you hit the nail on the head. Vortex goes up and above the mountain at Canada's Wonderland.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I would really hope that this would stay, because if you get that beautiful...
Fun fact. Do you know a fun fact, Waterparker?
What's the fun fact?
You're a Kings Island fanboy, but the reason why the bat at Kings Island does that weird turnaround at the top is because it's a direct clone of vortex at Canada's Wonderland, and at the top of the mountain, it's got to go around the mountain to come down. So they just cloned it straight up, and they kept that same element in there, which is why you have that weird turnaround. And you're like, well, why is this here? Why don't we just do a drop into something? But that's why. So fun fact, and you probably knew that already. So
yeah, but thing about it though is that think about it. You're riding vortex, and you see that drop from the dive coaster going into the lake right next to you.
Through vortex too. Like it goes through vortex. It looks pretty cool.
That's going to be pretty cool, Andy. I think it's going to be a great addition no matter what. I'm really excited to see what the new administration with Cedar Fair is going with Canada's Wonderland. We've seen a lot of flats, which do very well at Canada's Wonderland, by the way. But I think it's most definitely time for them to get a brand new coaster, and a dive coaster seems like it would fit because, they already have the Giga. They already have the Hyper. I don't really think that they need a wing coaster yet. Maybe not.
And I don't really foresee them pouring a whole lot of money into that park. It does really well with the coasters that it has. Like I said, to me, it did not strike me as a crowd that was clamoring for more roller coasters. I'm sure there is a big fan group of people that would love to see more coasters. I'm one of those people. I'd love to see more coasters at Canada. But I think the general people walking through those turnstiles doesn't want to see. They have a whole ton of a slew of coasters as it is, and they line up for the SLC. They line up for Time Warp, two terrible rides, and yet here we are. So hopefully, I think in the future, if Cedar Fair was to remove some of those smaller coasters and put in better versions, I think that would suffice. But I don't know if we're going to see a whole lot of coaster investment within Canada's Wonderland. They just haven't brought those fans up on that type of system. They brought them up on flats and rides and the number of rides, and I think that's where their bread and butter is at Canada's Wonderland. So moving on to our second story this evening, and it is the removal of Tanganyika Tidal Wave down at Busch Gardens Tampa. Now, this is one that Danny and I talked about a while ago when we talked about the new trademarks that were filed down for Tampa. And they kind of led us to believe that Busch Gardens might be RMCing Gwazi, which I will say is still a possibility because, Waterparker, I don't know if you listened to the most recent Coaster Radio show, but Coaster Radio did an interview with Fred Grubb at Steel Vengeance Media Day, and Fred Grubb basically said that there is no structure that they cannot work with. So that is, to me, that is the most telling. This was on film, or in audio, said from Fred Grubb's mouth that other people have said, well, they've said that Gwazi's structure is too far gone, or the structure of this ride or that ride is too far gone. That is not what he said at Steel Vengeance Media Day. So I don't know if they have changed their mind on this, if they found ways or new technology. Like, they cut away on a lot away on Steel Vengeance and a lot away on Hurler. So maybe they're at that point where, they're doing these Iron Horses now and rebuilding major sections of these rides. So maybe Gwazi will get saved. But back to the main story, I just want to say that, because I like to point out facts of what people actually say, and not what people make up that people said. So anyway, they are removing Tanganyika Tidal Wave, and to me, this seems, a lot of people criticized us for talking about the RMCing of Gwazi. That was the more fun thing to talk about, and the more exciting thing to talk about. The reality of the situation is they're probably putting in another Skyrocket 2 Tempesto clone, and the Tanganyika Tidal Wave section of the park would be a very good section to put a ride like that in. Waterparker, do you agree? You think they're getting a Tempesto, or do you think they're getting something else?
Here's my problem. This is my problem. So I can go to a lot of places within the chain, and I can get a Rocket clone.
Yeah, you can pretty much go to any of the parks now. The only ones that won't have one are the two in Florida, and it looks like San Diego's getting one. San Antonio does not have one yet. Busch Gardens Williamsburg has one. So this seems to be like the go-to ride for Busch right now. and I'm not sure why. They're nice rides, but they seem like they could be a little costly. Like they're not super cheap.
My issue is that I would love to see an RMC of Gwazi first. And maybe that's just me coming out, because when I was a kid, I went to Busch Gardens Tampa. I didn't ride much because I was more interested in going on the little sky ride. But when I went, I remember vividly looking at Gwazi and thinking, wow, that thing's pretty cool. But, I can understand for them to go and get a skyrocket because it is something that is different for the Floridian market, which we've seen before. It's been a success at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It is coming to a new...
Well, you have to say success like this, Water Parker, because it's been a success. It's been a ride. It's been a ride in the park. People ride it. People like it. People move on. The question is this ride going to sell tickets? No one's going to Tampa to ride a Skyrocket 2. I don't even know if the people who go to Tampa that you're drawing from, this international market, you're drawing from, the Orlando market. I don't even know if they're going to get excited by this ride, because on the base level, it's kind of intimidating if you've never been on roller coasters before. It's like going upside down. I know it's going to have the comfort collar. I don't know if this ride, I don't see how this ride solves any of the SeaWorld problems. I just don't understand it.
Andy,
it's not going to sell tickets.
It's a new ride in Florida.
Yeah,
if people are coming out, they're just going to still ride.
They put in Mako, and Mako did not sell tickets. Mako is a fine roller coaster, a great B&M coaster, something that Florida does not have, a hyper coaster. And it did not sell tickets. It did not sell tickets. I don't know how else to put this. Now, if you RMC Gwazi, you're going to sell tickets just by doing that. And let's be honest, how much more money are you spending on the Skyrocket 2 that has a launch, that has this magnetic system, that has, quite a bit of track, not as much as a standard coaster, but you're going to invest in theming and all this other BS? How much more would it actually cost to RMC Gwazi? Seriously. Spend $10 million more and people will buy tickets. People will go down to Tampa. Look at what this park has done. People are talking about Steel Vengeance. People are talking, as much as I don't like Storm Chaser, people are talking about Kentucky Kingdom. They're going and buying tickets. I bought a ticket to Kentucky Kingdom to ride Storm Chaser. And people buy tickets. I'm not flying down to Tampa to buy a ticket to go ride a Skyrocket 2. So that's my point, and that's my soapbox. That's why we didn't talk about it on the last show. That's why I don't want to talk about it now, because, frankly, I think it's stupid. It's another Cobra's Curse mistake. Cobra's Curse was not the ride for Tampa. You need to make Tampa different. It's not a family park. Yes, families show up, but you need to start installing big rides that get the coaster community talking, that get people watching commercials and saying, hey, I need to go to Busch Gardens Tampa. I don't need to go to Disney World. I don't need to go to Universal. I need to go to Busch Gardens Williamsburg. And let me tell you, Cobra's Curse and a Skyrocket 2 is not selling air flights and tickets to go down to Tampa. People are going down to Orlando, and Tampa is still a secondary thought, because they haven't installed a major roller coaster since SheiKra.
I think that Andy just stole all the show, guys. I don't know. But I will agree with you, Andy. There's a serious problem with the SeaWorld chain. And that's the fact that Blackfish left SeaWorld in a mess.
And installing shitty little coasters isn't the answer. Wavebreaker isn't the answer. Electric Eel, as much as I like these rides, as much as I like going on them, they are not selling tickets.
And Andy, let's toy around this idea. An S&S Free Fly might actually sell more tickets.
It's not going to sell tickets. I went on Joker today. I went to Six Flags Great America. I loved my experience on Joker. But guess what? I can go to any Six Flags park and ride Joker. I can even live in Mexico City right now and ride a Free Fly. I don't need to buy a flight to Tampa to go ride this. It's the same problem with the Skyrockets. I can go to Williamsburg. I can go to Discovery Kingdom. I can go to lake compounds. Everyone has one of these damn things now. This is, once again, it's not selling tickets. You need something unique. You need something that's going to pique people's interest, that they're going to either be in Orlando or be somewhere else and be like, I need to go to Tampa Bay this year because I need to ride that ride. That's what Busch Gardens Tampa needs. And that's what they refuse to admit that they need there. And it wasn't Cobra's Curse. It's not a Skyrocket 2. It would be the RMC of Gwazi. It would be that. People would go down there. Or even if you put Mako, that supposedly Mako was originally supposed to go to Tampa, that would have been a better move because people aren't going to SeaWorld. You need to stop trying to get people through that gate. That's a lost cause. Busch Gardens Tampa can still make money.
Did someone flip that? I mean, this would actually fit in with SeaWorld, and Mako would have fit in with freaking Busch Gardens. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's Andy, we're pissing ourselves off even more talking about this. Let's move on. Let's move on to something.
I've gone on my soapbox already. You can comment down below. So the last story is, if fun wasn't already in style, it is now. Six Flags, in their most recent conference call with Jim Reed Anderson, the man, the legend, Jim Reed Anderson, Mr. Motorcycle Biker himself, went on to the conference call and said that they are now interested in purchasing more parks in America. Before you get excited, let's temper expectations. He did specifically say water parks, and that would be within the realm would be within the realm of what Six Flags has done. They bought another water park in Mexico just recently. They bought one in San Francisco, not San Francisco, but right by Discovery Kingdom that they once had. They rebought it back. They're trying to buy water parks. Water parks, like water parker, are good investments in money. You get a good ROI. You get a good return on investment, and they are money makers. Buying up theme parks, small theme parks in America, I don't know if that's the best route to go for Six Flags. People have already said Darien Lake, because they owned Darien Lake at one point. People have said Frontier City because they owned Frontier City at one point. Now, what makes this interesting is Six Flags in the market for maybe the SeaWorld or Busch Parks, to play on the last one. All these other parks don't really excite me. I could care less if Six Flags owned Frontier City. I could care less if they owned Darien Lake. It would give those people in those areas a more value for their pass. I'm probably not going to go back to those parks, anytime soon unless they start adding major things. But I'll tell you what, if Six Flags gets involved in the Florida business or in the Texas, well, they wouldn't get involved in San Antonio because they already have Fiesta across the bay. San Diego's always an option. The Busch Parks, you never know what SeaWorld's going to do. Are you going to sell off the SeaWorld parks? Are you going to sell off the Busch Parks? Do you do nothing? But I think it makes it very interesting to think maybe Six Flags might be in the market for one of these other Busch Parks. And there's a lot of attractive options because guess what? Outside of San Antonio, Six Flags is not involved in any of those markets currently.
Now, Andy, I got a lot of stuff to cover here because you opened up the floodgates.
I did.
You did. So let's start off with the Busch and let's move into water parks. We'll start with theme parks for our theme park viewers. Then we'll go to the water parks for our water park viewers. I would be very surprised if Six Flags were to purchase Busch or SeaWorld. However, even though I would want Cedar Fair to go and purchase these parks, I think that Six Flags could definitely pull off something with Busch Gardens Tampa because they already have Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. They already have people who work with the animals. This is a perfect purchase. They can go. They already have ties with RMC, Andy. They can just go and say, all right, first year, RMC Gwazi. There we go. Forget about the rocket. We're going to RMC Gwazi.
And you wonder, people have always wondered why Tampa is keeping Gwazi up, and everyone always says, well, it's because they don't want to spend the money to demo it. But are they thinking that maybe that makes it more attractive to a buyer, that a buyer can come in? Busch might, or SeaWorld might not have the money, but maybe a buyer comes in, buys out Tampa, and has the RMC of Gwazi already built in as its first-year plan to make a big splash. I think that's exciting. Cedar Fair, I think, is the more exciting option to buy those parks just because, but Cedar Fair is already involved in the Williamsburg market. So they already have Kings Dominion right across, and I don't know if they would – I guess in theory you could have two parks. They're two very different parks, but do you really want to be competing against yourself in the same market? I don't know. Same thing with Six Flags in San Antonio. Cedar, that's an attractive option for Cedar Fair, I think, because they don't have any Texas parks. I think that's a very interesting. But San Antonio, to me, seems like a much smaller park and maybe not of a Cedar Fair type level. They have that big lake in the middle, I guess you could get rid of.
No.
And then San Diego is up in the air. San Diego is more of a zoo than a park anyway. So I think the Orlando parks are the most interesting. Does Six Flags buy them? I don't know. Do they have – like, that's big money, but Jim Reed Anderson saying that, hey, these generate hundreds of millions of dollars every year. You buy Busch, you buy even SeaWorld, Six Flags go in there. You don't hear a lot of complaints about Discovery Kingdom now, do you? They've kind of weathered that animal storm and gotten rid of the whales and did what they had to do. And maybe they can do the same thing at SeaWorld and buy SeaWorld and be in the Orlando market. I don't know how you structure the season passes at that point because you can't have all these Six Flags people just waltzing into SeaWorld Orlando for free, can you?
Let's transition over to the water parks, Andy, because
I think is the more realistic option.
This is my zone. Yeah. I have been hearing very, very strong rumors that Schlitterbahn Corpus Christi is on the cutting board.
Well, it's in the bankruptcy, right? It's being contested right now, yeah.
I think, now, you guys are hearing this here first, ladies and gentlemen. I have a strong feeling that Six Flags could definitely come on in and turn this park around. I think that they have the area to work with. I think they already have the water park engineers already very close to Corpus Christi. I think that's perfect for the chain. And in all honesty, Andy, I hate saying this because Schlitterbahn is one of these chains that you always think about when you talk about water parks. What if Six Flags were to come on in and say, okay, we want Kansas City and we want Corpus Christi. Kansas City, there you go. Schlitterbahn or Six Flags.
Now, I will say this. Jim Reed Anderson made it sound like he wanted water parks that are already in markets that they – now, I didn't understand this because he made it sound as if you want to buy water parks that are in markets where they already have parks. The problem is they already have hurricane harbors at many of their Six Flags parks. So to buy another water park – now, we see this in Atlanta with Six Flags Over Georgia, and then they have Six Flags Whitewater across the city. So they have two hurricane harbors, one attached to the park, one standalone, and two opposite sides of the city. And I think water parks, more so than theme parks, like when I said, well, Cedar Fair wouldn't get involved in Williamsburg because you're competing against yourself. I think water parks allow you to have multiple properties in the same city, the same market, because people don't really travel for water parks. They like to go to local water parks a lot. So you travel, but you're the unusual one.
I'm the weird guy. I plan around water parks. Hey, that's true.
Yeah, most people will go to a water park that's near their home, and if there's one that opens up nearest their home, they're probably going to go to that one. And this might allow Six Flags to expand its season pass base and get somebody to walk into like a Six Flags Whitewater, but then later on in the season say, hey, maybe I'll go check out Over Georgia too, or maybe I'll go check out this. And I think the water parks are an attractive option where it's usually low money to install new rides. You can do big stuff for low prices, and you're going to get a big ROI on that.
And I think that, Andy, right now, Six Flags in a perfect position.
Yeah.
Corpus Christi's already on the cutting block. They can just come on in. They can nab it. Now, also, too, ladies and gentlemen, there are other water parks around the United States that are close to these theme parks that could be bought up too. The question is, though, whether or not they're going to sell.
Well, and I think another question is like I said that Jim Reed Anderson said he wants to stay within markets, but do they start getting involved in other markets? Do they buy something like the beach?
I was about to bring that up, and if Six Flags were to have pulled that off to where they can buy the beach, they add in all these water slides that people have been wanting there for a long time.
Yeah.
They add in a water coaster. They add in a Dropbox slide complex. They add in some other slide complex that actually competes with Kings Island Soap City. I think that you have competition. But then again, the issue is the fact that if you go to Kings Island, if you go to Soap City at Kings Island, you get Kings Island for free. So that's where the problem lies.
Well, you might be able to expand your season pass base. The problem is there's no other Six Flags park anywhere around Kings Island. So the nearest would be, to the east, it would be Great America, which is a 4.5 hour drive. To the west, St. Louis is what, a 4 hour drive, maybe 3.5.
It's a long way. It's a very long way.
You have to the east, you're talking about like Great Adventure, which is, tons and tons away. So I think that's where the problem is that do you start opening up water parks where you don't to get your name out there, to get people to recognize the Six Flags brand, to get people to expand your season pass base, and maybe draw them to your other parks? I don't know. I don't know what he meant by this. It kind of took everyone by surprise. I don't think a lot of people were expecting Six Flags to start saying that they're going to buy stuff up. But I just don't think that they're going to go ahead and buy up the old parks that they own, because I don't think those parks are worth buying, to be honest with you. Like Kentucky Kingdom, it has all the problems. Even if you love Kentucky Kingdom, you can't discount the fact that the problems that the why Six Flags had to leave are still there. The problems with the Fair Board are still there. Darien Lake is a nice property. I'm surprised Six Flags gave that one up to begin with, so that might be one. You still have to pour money in it to get it back up to – it's a smaller park. Like I think of Six Flags and I think of all these big, massive parks now, and I don't know if any of these little parks match that unless you're going to build them up a lot. Are you going to pour the money into like a Frontier City to build another 3 to 4 coasters over the next couple of years? I don't think you are. I think what he meant is I think he might have meant that he's in the market for some of these SeaWorld parks. And that would shake up the industry a lot, because we know Cedar Fair has a great market share and a great, spreading of all their, parks around. But everyone, both Cedar Fair and Six Flags, has not entered the Orlando, Florida market. And it'll be interesting to see who is the first one to actually get in there.
For you guys at home, please feel free to comment down below. Comment. We'll be commenting right back. This is a very interesting concept because a lot of people have a lot of varying ideas. And, just sort of to highlight on something real fast, even though I hate to see parks go, I would love to see Six Flags come into a park like SeaWorld San Antonio and really build up the park.
Yeah.
Or, hey, if they buy something like Frontier City, S&S Free Flies and Larson Loops for all. There we go.
They already have a Larson Loop at Frontier City.
Well, add another one. We need 5 more.
They don't have a giant one, so I guess they don't have a giant Larson Loop roller coaster there. So, anyway, well, thank you as always for joining us here. I think we had a pretty nice discussion tonight about all these great things. I'm of course Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm the waterparker from Cincinnati, Ohio, and as always, stay tropical.
Right on, Ride Warriors. Go ride Steel Vengeance. It's the best ride in the world.
Hey, ride lightning, buddy.
Oh, well,